Alright, what's up guys? Welcome back to Game Education. So today in this video we're going to have a look at the idea of combined arms in Steel Division 2. And if you're a new player, this is I think one of the harder things to maybe get to grips with and to really understand what it means in practice, when you're combining your arms. And so what is combined arms? Well, you have two arms and you put them together and there is your combined arms. Sorry, bad joke. But if I'm being serious, what it means is, we take all of these things that we can see in front of us in the deck screen here. This is the deck I'm going to show you in a replay. We take all of these things and we make them complement each other. It doesn't mean that we have to use every single thing all together at exactly the same time. We don't need to be trying to micro a tank along with infantry and an anti-tank gun and a bomber and artillery all at the same time, but generally one or two or three different kinds of units working together towards a particular goal, so that they can complement each other because each different unit has its strength and is good at a different thing. And if we try to use just one unit type to, let's say, brute force an advantage or some kind of advance, then if we're playing against an experienced player, we're probably going to get shut down quite easily. And maybe you've experienced that yourself. Maybe you've tried just tank rushing an opponent. Yeah, why not? Send out 15 T-34 76s, because surely that must overwhelm your opponent, right? In the case of an inexperienced opponent, yes. An experienced opponent will just allow you to do that and will use the right unit types to counter your single unit type and leave you crying in the dust eventually, even if you do at first gain some kind of advantage from that. And so this is the deck that I used, and what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at a 10v10 replay that I played in. Of course, I played it using this deck. And first, I'm just going to go over my deck choices. So why did I choose these units in these phases, and so on and so forth? Something I've talked about many times before, but I still think it's worth going over. Now, the first disclaimer is when we look at the deck here and we watch the replay, what we're going to see is that I don't use all of these units. Some of these cards I in fact never use. For the whole, and it's an hour-long replay, 10v10 on Tannenburg, but for the whole hour, some of these cards I do not use at all. Some of them I get great value out of, some of them I use and get zero value or very little value, and some of them I don't even bring out. Now that doesn't mean that they were worthless. The the main thing that we have to consider when we play 10v10 is that there's a lot of different things that can happen. A lot. There's such a wide variety of not just enemy players that you're going against, but the divisions they play, the decks they build for those divisions, and then what units they choose to bring out and where and when and how they use those units. And all of these things should affect how we choose also what units to bring out in conjunction with paying attention to the units that our allies bring out. So it's not only paying attention to our enemy, but in a 10v10 with 9 allies beside us, hopefully. We also have to pay attention to what our allies bring, because if our allies are bringing, say, a lot of anti-air, there's not much point in us bringing extra anti-air because it's a bit of a waste, a bit of an overkill, and we're not going to get great value out of those units. Whereas if if our ally is not bringing any infantry or not enough infantry, it definitely helps for us to bring infantry out. Now, I did actually want to kind of make a video showcasing how to use things like anti-tank guns well. And so I chose this division because I thought, oh, okay, it's got a nice selection of anti-tank guns, and it's got some anti-air to back those up. And then I started to realize as I went through the chain of the thought process is that you can't make a video just about anti-tank guns, at least not playing against real opponents. Because at the end of the day, this is what the thought process goes like. Okay, I'm going to bring anti-tank guns, and I'm going to place them here. What is my opponent going to do, or what can my opponent do to counter these anti-tank guns? Well, they could bring bombers. Okay, well, if they're going to bring bombers, then I'm going to need some anti-air. Okay, so let's bring some anti-air. Let's show people, what we do with anti-air. Okay, great. What if my opponent tries to artillery my anti-air? Well, I'll probably need some artillery too. Okay, so I'm going to have to showcase the artillery and how we can do counter battery and things like that too. Okay, great. What if my opponent starts pushing with a lot of infantry? Oh, well, I'll probably need some infantry myself to hold the key areas. Okay, so I'm going to need to involve the infantry as well. Well, probably some tanks would be helpful for infantry support or taking out armor at some stages. And you get to the point where you realize that you're trying to showcase anti-tank guns, but effectively you have to show everything because these things just can't be played in a vacuum. Now, you might see some meme builds in 10v10s, like people just only bringing planes or only bringing artillery. Those players mostly are kind of boning their team. Not very helpful, really puts their team at a disadvantage most of the time. So don't do that. Don't be that guy, unless you're just trying to be silly and have fun. But then don't be surprised if some of the other players on your team get a bit upset with you. So, without further ado, let's have a quick run through the deck here, so I can explain. Some snipers, recon snipers, because snipers at the start on the motorbike are nice for an aggressive positioning, maybe catch some infantry transports, and in B as well, just as some extra recon if I need it. Two cards of infantry in A, B, and C, and one card of CQC infantry. These guys have Molotovs. One card of standard line infantry. This is your meat. Please never, ever make a deck for a 10v10 without at least one card of line infantry per phase. Please. This is your meat. This is your bones of your skeleton, okay? Imagine you're trying to make some kind of Frankenstein's monster, okay? And you're making it without bones. It's just going to fall into a pile of slush on the floor. It's going to be really gross, okay? Don't do that. The line infantry are the bones of your monster, okay? No bones, pile of slush. Okay, good. Please, just don't do that. We need the line infantry because they can take a lot of damage, and they're cheap. 20 points per squad, and these Strelki, let's have a quick look. 11 men, very nice. They have anti-tank grenades, they have an LMG, and some rifles. Good at 500 meters, good at 750 meters with the LMG, and any vehicles that get too close, poof, down goes those vehicles. Nice multi-role unit, very cheap, lots of HP, and you don't care if you lose them. And a lot of the time, actually, we're happy to lose line infantry if it means that we have revealed opponent's units or valuable opponent's units. So if I lose one Strelki, but I reveal an opponent's BS3 100 millimeters, for example, just hypothetically, then I've lost 20 points. But I now know where 100 points of my opponent's is, and I can now bomb it, or artillery it, or whatever else, whatever I want to take it out. But you can't take out an enemy unit if you don't know where it is. So a lot of the time, line infantry serves this purpose really as just showing you where enemy units are, and they're great for that because you don't care a lot of the time about losing 20 points, especially not in a 1 hour match where you've got thousands upon thousands of points to spend anyway. Now into the tank tab, we have quite a short tank tab for this division, and so I've just thrown the Shermans into A, the T-34-85s 43 into B, and then the 44 into C. Don't really have any other options other than the leaders. I just want these either as infantry support or as a kind of close range anti-tank support, taking out other tanks whenever the situation seems reasonable for doing so. And then in the infantry tab, we have some anti-infantry guns. The SU-122, this has a nice 2 kilometer range HE shell, very nice for that soft target destruction. ISU-152, and again in C, exactly for the same purpose. Most of the time I don't want these for taking on enemy armor. One, because they're quite slow to reload, and if they miss, it's going to be sitting there for quite a while. And the other one is that the the armor penetration is quite good, but not amazing. And because it's a casemate, that means it doesn't have a turret. It has to turn its whole body to fire on targets. Again, it's a bit slow. It can be used to kill tanks, can do it just fine, but it's not super great at it. For taking out enemy heavy tanks, once we hit sea phase, we got this nice BS3 100 millimeters, very nice anti-tank gun. It has 2 kilometer range and 200 millimeters of penetration. Okay, so this is a really nice long range anti-tank gun. The drawback being it has to be pulled by these YA-12s, which only have 38-kilometer road speed, pretty slow, takes a while to arrive at the front line, especially if you have advanced a bit. If you've gained territory and the front line is even further away from the reinforcement line, it's going to take a while for these guys to get there. Otherwise, I have a ZIS-2 and ZIS-3 in A phase, and the ZIS-2 for main anti-tank capabilities, the ZIS-3 in case I need some cheaper, as low as only 5 points cheaper, or some, let's say, lower caliber anti-tank capabilities, good for taking out, let's say, half-tracks or recon vehicles, or light tanks, or the less armored medium tanks, or those close quarters engagements. Again, when you play a 10v10, there are so many different things that can happen that I find it's better to have multiple options available, even if you don't use those things when you play the match. And it doesn't mean when you play the match that you should take that card out of your deck because you didn't find use for it that match. Like I said, the variety of a 10v10 is so large that some games you will find no use for some units, and then in the next game you'll find 100 uses for that same unit. So then into the anti-air tab, we have the very nice Zen artillery, 85 millimeters. These are similar to the Axis ones, but not quite as good in terms of AP capabilities, armor piercing. So the Axis version, it also works really well as a kind of anti-tank gun, as a multi-purpose thing. I'm just bringing these because they get that really nice long anti-air range of 3,000 meters. These things are wonderful at stunning and just building suppression on enemy planes before they get into range. If you can do that, you can often make enemy planes have to fall back before they manage to get their bombs off or get their shots off, or sometimes you just manage to almost max out their suppression bar before they release their bombs, and the higher the suppression on a plane before it drops its bombs, it actually makes the bombs spread out more. So if a plane is going to drop 4 bombs, but you manage to get the suppression almost to maximum before it releases the bombs, often these bombs will go wildly off target, and it's almost the same as them not dropping the bombs in some cases. So these very long range anti-air artillery guns, let's call them, are really nice, especially on a 10v10 map like this. Can cover a wide area. Then in sea phase, we just have the 37 millimeter. These are the Bofors, I think. Oh, not Bofors. Bofors is 40 millimeters. These are just the 37 millimeter anti-air, also with 2,500 range. Very nice anti-air guns, but I would prefer to use the bigger ones first, and then if I still need more, then these are the kind of backup. Then in the artillery tab, I bring the F-22 76.2 millimeter, and this has recently been given a radio in one of the patches or updates to the game. So I wanted to give it a try and see if it was useful or not. And spoiler alert, it's not. Wasn't useful before, still not useful now. So I will not be bringing this again. And then in the B phase, we have the artillerist, and I have to bring these guys because for this deck, these are the only guys that have radio. Other than these leaders here and the commanders, which I don't bring, none of the infantry leaders have a radio, which is a shame. Not that I bring any anyway, but they don't have a radio. But this division has a lot of radio artillery, and they even have these quite nice 160 millimeter mortars that have radios. Now, you're not going to get any use out of this radio trait unless you have some other units with the radio trait giving you that radio radius over the things you want to shoot. Now, with no other units in the division having a radio, bringing this unit of artillerist actually is necessary if you want to use these mortars effectively. So I'll be able to show you as well the difference in accuracy between when you're firing within that radio range, which gives you improved accuracy, and when you're firing outside that radio range, which of course then you don't get that improved accuracy, your dispersion is larger and you're less likely to hit your target. Now the other artillery guns here I'm bringing mostly for counter battery. If I feel like doing that, it's an option that's available to me, as they have infinite range, whereas the 160 millimeter mortars, although very nice, only have a limited range of 5,300 meters. So that's something that we have to bear in mind here. Now, if I was to swap this F-22 out for something else, I think I would probably take either the 122 millimeter howitzer here, the 120 millimeter mortar team, or the BM-848 Katyusha 82 millimeter rocket truck. It's because everybody loves rockets, and seeing them pew 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 is always beautiful to watch. Of course, most of the time you would only get one use out of them, unless you have a supply truck ready. And for this division build, we actually only have the supply trucks available in B and C necessary. So then using these rocket trucks in A, okay, we can bring it out, we can use it, it fires, but then it's going to have to sit there until B phase, and I can bring a rocket truck, bring a supply truck. Once the supply truck arrives, then we have to wait while the rocket truck reloads before I can then fire. It's a long time, to not have a unit doing something. So you lose a lot of value there, I think. And then finally, into the air tab, we have the IL-2M. This has two 250 kg bombs. This is just a nice, reasonably priced bomber that we can bring out in the first phase of the game, the A phase. If we have some target that needs bombing, like an anti-tank gun or something like that. With some fighters, generally always good to bring at least one card of fighters, even if you don't use them. And then of course the Super Meme Year 2. These have huge bomb loadouts. This one in B phase has 4 500 kg bombs, and then this bad boy is a nuclear bomber essentially with 3 1,000 kilogram bombs and 8 250 kilogram HE bombs. And even bringing them in C phase, we only get 2 of these, only 1 card. So 2 maximum no matter what. And a lot of the time, actually, when you're playing 10v10, your opponents, and your team too, tend to set up, everybody tends to set up a lot of anti-air. And essentially what this translates to then is pretty much after A phase, you're not going to get much success bringing planes out unless you bring a whole train of them. And by train, I mean like a convoy of planes. If you bring 5 planes out, one after the other, all the anti-air is going to shoot at the first one. The second one gets a little bit closer, all the anti-air shoots at that, it retreats, and then you probably get 2 or 3 planes that can actually get onto target and shoot their rockets or shoot their guns or drop their bombs, and maybe still get shot down, but at least get their bombs off. But it's a really big investment just for trying to get one kind of bombing run off. You have to invest in 5 planes. That's running into the 6 or 700s of points. It's not super efficient in terms of point economy. So then why would I bring these bombers. They can only come in sea phase, and I just said most of the time, you know, you're not going to be able to use them, right? So why do I bring them? Because there is occasionally a situation where you can use your bombers. And that situation is when the game advances to a certain stage, sometimes you get players who will save up a lot of points and then they will, maybe with another friend, they will rush a certain part of the map and they'll have a lot of tanks, a lot of vehicles coming in. And this can be very effective. Players usually aren't prepared for it, they aren't built up enough to prevent 20 or 30 tanks from advancing in a straight line somewhere. But what that does is, when they advance like this, they're also advancing away from their anti-air. Most of the time, these players will not also bring anti-air with them, and if they do, they usually don't bring enough anyway. And so you have this nice opportunity where this large kind of column of enemies has advanced into your territory, and all of their nasty, nasty anti-air is way at the back behind them, and you are quite free to bomb them to your heart's content. And that's the situation where you can get a lot of value out of these things. But if you don't have them in your deck, you're not going to have that opportunity. So that's why I have them. It's a rare situation, but it happens. And when it happens, and you have a nuclear bomber available like this, the results can be quite fun. So that's why I have it. I don't actually get any use out of it in the game we're going to watch, but that's why it's there. So that's the quick, or you might say slow, explanation of the deck that I use in this replay. So let's hop into the replay and have a look. And if you don't want to know the outcome, close your eyes now. Okay, here we go. Okay, here we go. So let's just speed up a bit until we get to the deployment. And we'll have a look at it at neutral. And what we'll do is we'll... My god, these... Okay, the beeping has stopped. What we'll do is we'll have a look sometimes in neutral, and sometimes we'll have a look at the game from my own perspective, just so that we can see, what I can see gives us a little bit more perspective on why I make some of the choices I make. So let's switch to my view. Let's press play. Let's swap down to 1 speed. And on the left here, we get this nice DB7B smoke bomber play on this road here, which turns out quite interestingly. But I decided that I was going to work within this area here. So I'm looking at deploying into the forest here and into the forest here. The town on the right will be occupied by my ally, and this area as well will be occupied by different allies. Just me that is going to be working this territory here. And I think I've actually another video where I play pretty much in the same position as Rapana. So it's going to be quite similar to that, but of course every game is different, especially in 10v10. This time as well on the allied side. So what we're looking at here is, let's just turn the audio down a bit. I turned it up to play, but for the replay it's not so useful. So on the left side here, I like to throw a couple of recon units into the forest here, and a sniper into this building as well. And that way any infantry transports that try to come down this road will be sniped. We see there a quick glimpse of something going into the town. Of course, they don't always have to come down this road and be spotted there. They could, of course, cut across here and then come down this way, and that way they would not be spotted by any of my units. So what we do here is, we've got a bit of an open area here, And when we first deploy, we're trying to look at the terrain and we're trying to look at the reinforcement roads especially, and then we think, okay, if I was in this position here, so if I was my opponent, where would I send units and what kind of units would I send there? Okay, and then the secondary kind of consideration would be how fast can my units get to that spot? Now, for example, my units could get into this town fairly quickly because the road runs right through it. However, this tree line here would take a bit longer because trucks would have to drive off-road, and all units have a slower off-road speed than they do on-road. So of course anything next to the road is going to be occupied much faster than those, say, in the middle of a field here. But when I look at this, like if I'm trying to take care of this area, what is my opponent going to do? Then my expectation is probably they're going to contest the town with some infantry. They're probably going to try to support this town with some units in the tree line here. We can see there's an anti-tank gun or something in the tree line already. Something being dropped off here. I'd also expect my opponent to put some infantry units into the tree line here, supported by more either infantry units or machine guns in the buildings here as well, because buildings provide like a kind of damage resistance to the units, so this is a nice defensible area. And then, if possible, I would expect my opponent to try and put units into this tree line here. Of course, as I said, being further away from the road, it would take longer, and it is a little bit risky, because crossing this here does expose the units to this forest here, and if I can quickly get an anti-tank gun or something into this tree line here, I would be able to shoot at transports that are moving along here. It's not a guaranteed thing, but it's a kind of risk, and some players don't want to take that risk. So that being said, let's hop to neutral and let's see what my opponent actually brings. So 2 units of infantry in the town, that's quite light. There is a Pack 38 moving to these trees here. So I pretty much called this exactly as it happened. Okay, there's some flak 20s behind the tree line there, and let's see where these units are going. So 1 unit of pioneers into the forest here, and this is a recon unit. MG into the building, and a line infantry unit into the forest here. Now, to me, this unit choice here is a mistake. And the reason for that is the heavy forest here is, let's say, the domain of CQC infantry. CQC, I mean close quarters combat. That means infantry that either have a grenade, a Molotov cocktail, a flamethrower, or maybe just a lot of SMGs. Now these Strelky DT, they have SMGs and Molotov cocktails, fantastic CQC infantry. The Pioneer here has a grenade, fantastic CQC infantry. This Panzer Grenadier is line infantry with no special close quarters weapons. What we know from that is, in this fight here, this Pioneer will probably win the fight against the Strelky DT with heavy losses. This Panzer Grenadier will absolutely 100% die to the Strelky DT in about 3 seconds. Let's see how that goes. So when we're using line infantry, we want them where they can use their weapons the best, and that's around 500 to 750 meters, maybe 400 as well works well. Let's watch the Panzer Grenadier go to his death. Now I've also brought a Sherman here at the back, just to see if I can shoot anything down the road here. Now T-34 versus Sherman, usually Sherman would win that, but it's not a guarantee. Let's have a quick look at the stats. Now this is triple vet, just got a leader nearby, 90 millimeters of frontal armor, 100 millimeters of penetration, 190, so it's 90, 100, 190, pretty much the same. So this is an even fight. However, the T-34 has the advantage in being triple vet, so it's going to have a higher rate of fire and higher accuracy. although the Sherman does naturally have higher accuracy and rate of fire anyway, is one vet, so this will be higher again. But the triple vet probably makes it about even. And so an even fight most of the time I would not want to take. Don't take an even fight. That might sound a little bit weird, but you want to take, in my opinion, you want to take fights where you are going to win, where you have an advantage. Don't take an even fight. So in this case here, my Sherman versus the T-34, I probably would want to move my Sherman out of the way. And I think that's what I do. But let's watch this Panzer Grenadier die in a fire as a good example of why we don't bring line infantry to a heavy forest fight. Okay, out goes the Molotov, increases his suppression, has to run, and so far has lost a lot of men. Strelky DT has lost no men so far, has no suppression. Second Strelky DT then is moved up, finally lost one guy here. Panzer Grenadier gets pinned down to 3 men. Out goes another Molotov, down to 2 men. And so my opponent here lost a whole squad for me losing a single man from one squad. The Emcher and the T-34 disengaged their fight. I would say that's probably the right call there. And let's have a look at it from the side here. Now from my perspective here, although there are, when we're looking at neutral, we can see there are only 2 infantry units here. This is the time where we're gonna jump back to my perspective, and it makes it, I think, a little bit easier to understand some of the decisions and things that are happening here. So I've got one of the heavy anti-air guns in the back here. And the reason for that is I have a ZIS-2 and an infantry gun here. Now these are going to complement each other. If there is a tank that tries to come down this road here, let's have a look at the line of sight. That tries to come down this way, or tries to come down this way, the ZIS-2 will be able to take care of that, at least if it's just a medium tank. If there are infantry, or let's say anti-tank guns, or any other soft target tries to advance down the same lines, then this infantry gun will be able then to take care of that. So these 2 units, sorry, these 2 units, and there's only 2 of them, allow me to pretty much counter everything that could try to advance down this kind of V here. I can't really see into the buildings here or behind the buildings, but that's okay. They're preventing any kind of movement here. Now, in my opponent's position, if I tried to advance tanks down here and they got shot by the ZIS-2, or I tried to advance infantry and they got killed by the infantry gun, an easy way, I mean, especially if I know that both of them are there kind of in the same position, an efficient way to take care of that is with a bomber. So if I want to prevent my opponent from easily removing 80 points of my ZIS-2 and infantry gun, then having some anti-air here is going to aid in preventing that. Now the single anti-air gun here might not quite be enough to prevent the bomber before he gets his bombs off, but it should at least make the bomber be suppressed, spread his bombs out, and it could even stun it or shoot it down in a lucky case. So I don't know what's in the town here, and just trying to advance blind usually is a good way to get your infantry killed. Now in this situation here, if I move my infantry out towards the buildings here, what we really want to think about, let me just click off this too. What we really want to think about here is, if I move my units this way, what is there potentially that's going to make me lose my unit? And so we look for where the enemy can hide units, and in this case I'm looking at this forest here and this forest at the back here. If we use the C key and we do a little measuring, we can see that there's about 1500 meter range here, and that is the range of most infantry guns. And so an infantry gun in the forest here will pin down and stop my Strelky from advancing, and I would pretty much lose units for not much gain. Alternatively, there could be infantry or MGs in the buildings here too. They would do exactly the same thing. And once the game advances a bit and we have more points to play with, it's easier to throw infantry away. But at the start of the game, this is only minute 2.5. Everybody only has less than, in most cases, everybody has less than 1,000 points to play with, okay? And that sounds like a lot, but spread out in terms of combined arms and using different units to do different things, actually it's not that much. And so in these cases, like at the beginning stages of the game, throwing units away, especially your infantry, is, I think, not really the best use. Keep them, let them be that skeletal structure for your Frankenstein's monster. So I'd like to advance here, but I don't really have the capability to do so, I'd say. Remember, we don't want to take an even fight. We want to take a fight where we have the advantage. So my opponent now, I see, has some kind of artillery here, and judging by the arc of fire here, this is a mortar. Judging by the large explosions, it's not a small caliber mortar. And as you get more experience with the game, you can start to recognize these things. You can start to recognize this kind of big boom that even fairly far away from your infantry still kind of suppresses them. This is not a small caliber gun. But you can see what I did here. Once I saw this mortar fire coming in, I moved my infantry away. So we don't just leave our units to sit there and get hit. We move them away. They're still in the forest, but they're at the edge of the forest on my side. They can't be shot, but also they're not under fire anymore. I sneak my Sherman out to this side here, get a nice tasty shot onto the T-34 there. And actually I have a strong chance of pushing through here, but we're looking at my side. If we look at the opponent's side, actually it's not that weak. So this is what we have to bear in mind. Sometimes we kill an enemy unit and we think, okay, great, we can advance. Let's go. But through the power of replay and being able to look into neutral, we can see that actually there's a fairly solid build-up here. There's a Pak-38 over here. There's a T-34 leader hiding behind the buildings. There's infantry and an MG. So this is a, let's say a combined kind of force. If I tried to move infantry out, then even the SDKFZ here, I think, would be able to fire on them with its HE gun. The machine gun would be able to shoot them. The infantry would be able to shoot them. So would the T-34. If I tried to bring the Sherman through here, then the Pak-38, the T-34, maybe even the SDKFZ here would also all three be able to fire onto my Sherman. So it's, let's say at the start of the game here, we're thinking about baby steps, and we're not just trying to rapidly rush out. So what's the next reinforcement here? So I bring some more infantry. Here's the first F-22, and we will see the power of its uselessness beginning now. Let's see where I'm aiming at with this one. So I'm aiming at these planes getting shot there. So I'm aiming at these buildings here. I can see that my opponent has an MG, some recon infantry, maybe something behind it as well there. So I think, okay, artillery is a nice option for this. They're sat in the buildings. I can shoot them for free with artillery. So off goes the artillery, and let's see the power of the 76mm shells. Okay, landed nearby, did almost nothing to the HG spar troop. In comes another one, again landing reasonably close to the building there, and still not even any suppression damage. Landing fairly close here, almost no suppression damage. Another one coming in, even landing fairly close to this Panzergren, who are not even hiding in a building. Doesn't do anything to them. Like, it's just so weak, so weak. you would probably need to have at least three of these, at least three, all firing at the same time to, kind of get some effect. But then you think, 65 points times three, you're pretty much up to 100 to 200 points there. Now here's a good example of the combined arms. As I was airing my woes about the F-22, we'll get back to that. I have plenty more to complain about the F-22. But here in this case, we had the Pak-38 here. And as I advanced my infantry down this road, and if you remember, I had two Strelki coming down the road here. What happened was one of them actually got sniped in their transport, and that's the wreck here. And that's a problem. I want to bring more infantry down this road to get into this forest because we want to contest this forest. We want more infantry in here. Once we have the infantry in here, we can then exert more influence onto the other side. We're not going to exert influence here before we have control of this heavy forest here. So we need more infantry, and we need them here. Now this truck got sniped, and so I unloaded my Strelki here. From 2 squads down to 1, can't do much with just 1 squad of Strelki. And so I'm bringing more infantry. I already bought more infantry. I have 1 Strelki DT coming here. I think there's going to be more coming as well. But I needed to take out this Pak-38 here. If I don't take it out, it's going to continue sniping my infantry transports here. Now another option might be to try and use my Sherman, my MCHR here. But at this close range, the Pak-38 does get APCR 150mm shells. And I would say that's something like an even fight. We don't want to have an even fight. So the other tools at my disposal would be the F-22, which we've seen is absolutely ineffective at doing anything. Not a good choice. So my other option would be using a plane, using a bomber. And as I said before, the bombers at the start of the game, near the start of the game, can be used. We see here there's one flak 20mm, and I get to drop the bombs. Don't get suppressed before I do that. Get to fly away. Don't even get that damaged because it's just one flak 38 20mm. 3 of them over here are too far away to aid in this area here. So now I can bring my Strelki up this road, and there's no danger of them being shot now. So here they freely move up the road. These are the Strelki DT, the same one here, that has the Molotov cocktail. And so these 2 units will allow me to contest this area here, hopefully take control of it. Now, here I move them off the road, because if we have a look at the sight line here, if we just send them directly up the road to deploy into the forest here, which is the fastest option, they're actually in line of sight of all of this road here. If my opponent brings a tank here or has an anti-tank gun hiding here, I don't know from my perspective, remember. I'm not the neutral, this is all I see, everything is hidden. Maybe they get sniped again. I'm losing points, so we take the slower route, we move the units here, move them up along the field, and then deploy safely, hidden from everything here by the forest. Very nice. Okay. So now with 2 Strelki DT, I can contest this Pioneer, and he will probably throw another grenade. Yep. Boom. That's six men out of a 7-man squad dead from that grenade, but 1 man still lives. But regardless, the forest now has been successfully contested, and I tell this guy to go on to return fire, send him out here to see if he can spot what's out here. There we go. He dies in a fire, but now I know still that this MG42 are still here. So this time, I decided, okay, let's fire 2 F-22s at the same location. And then I see this mortar firing again. I say, okay, I've had enough of this mortar. Let's see if we can do some counter battery. So this is combined arms. Your opponent uses artillery, then you can also use artillery to try and prevent that. Now, actually, my opponent is a fairly experienced player, And I know that because I could see his player level in the lobby before the game began. And we'll see some actually quite nice artillery micro from him as we play this. So as soon as this counter battery starts coming in, he actually moves his mortar pretty much immediately. That's the right thing to do. As ineffective as my F-22s are, they are even more ineffective when the units move out of their barrage zone, shall we call it. So the 120 millimeter moves away. F-22s just don't have the accuracy or the blast radius to do anything really here. Now they might be a little bit far away. Now we can move artillery closer to get better accuracy. The problem here would be I couldn't find a good location to do so. And the reason for that is there are multiple considerations for artillery placement. We don't just put them anywhere we want. And there are some, let's say, red zones. We don't put them on a road, especially not a reinforcement road. You put them on the road here, and your opponent puts his artillery onto counter battery. As soon as your artillery fires, your opponent's artillery are firing at them, and any other units moving down this road, that's infantry units, anti-tank guns, are also gonna get some of that fire, you know, if they get caught in the counter barrage. So never on a road, never next to a road, okay? So this is a red zone, never here. Next red zone would be never out in the open where your opponent might be able to shoot it. So for example, this zone here, or this zone here, within 2 kilometers of an enemy controlled heavy forest, that's a no-no. So we're a little bit further back from that, so we're out of that range. We could potentially use the forest or behind the forest here. However, if we have, let's say, anti-infantry guns or other supporting equipment that we want to have in the forest here, putting artillery near it means that that counter battery might also land on these units. Again, let's call it an orange zone. It's not so bad, but it's also kind of where we don't want the counter battery to land. So we have to put our artillery where we don't really have any units and where there won't really ever be any units. Now I kind of have this one a little bit close to the road because I'm not good at following my own advice. But that's the that's generally the way we should be doing it. So not near the roads, not near other units, because automatic counter battery will get all your other units killed as well. Alright, so again we see this 120 millimeter firing, and I think it's firing now at my let's see, where is this going? Follow this shell as it arcs slowly through the air. Down here. So perhaps trying to fire at these mortars or just at this forest in general doesn't seem to be aiming directly at anything, judging by the spread, which seems to be something like this circle here. Okay, and I try again for the counter battery, and this is a nice move here. This is, let's call this some advanced micro. He has a supply truck next to the mortar, and you could actually reattach the mortar to the supply truck and use it as a transport. Because the mortar walking, you imagine trying to move this huge heavy mortar, right? It's going to take you a while. You attach it to a truck and drive away much faster, and here we go. The truck drives away from this counter battery zone. Look at that, beautiful. This is just a nice little touch, nice little micro there by my opponent. So we've got this Pack 38 shooting at my Sherman. And actually it's going reasonably okay for my Sherman, but here's the combined arms. Now it's not much of a combined arms, but it's an example. With the infantry gun here, it's just in range and just in line of sight. I actually had to move it forwards a little bit to assist the Sherman here and potentially prevent the Sherman getting a penetration and losing some of its HP. So we get the infantry gun here to assist with the kill on the Pack 38. So we have 2v1. I did try to get this infantry gun to engage a little bit sooner, but it was just out of range. Here we go. In comes the last hit. Infantry gun gets the kill there. Very nice. No more Pack 38 here again. So that's two anti-tank guns removed from this forest line here, allowing me safe advance down this road. And this is important. Protecting your reinforcement roads is pretty important. How else are you going to reinforce, right? So I lost one Sherman here for reasons unknown. I can't remember exactly, but I've got a second one now. And we now have one, two of the Zen artillery anti-air. And again, that's because once you start to build up your units, you don't want them just dying for free to enemy bombers. So having at least two, maybe even three anti-air, and there is one from my ally here on the left, having one or two, three anti-air units essentially means that if your opponent does bring out air units, they are going to regret it, and it's not going to look like a free meal. That's the important thing here. Now, my opponent is also now using the SK-18 100mm artillery unit. This thing has amazing accuracy and is fantastic at counter battery. And so, over the next few minutes, we're going to say bye-bye to my F-22s, and also eventually bye-bye to my A-19 here, as they get counter batteried brutally. Let's have a look at the unit composition here. So we've got infantry in the tree line. That's our skeleton, right? We need that. We've got some recon units, great for giving us sight. There is a ZIS-2 here, but it's not mine. But it being there, I at least have some confidence that I don't need, actually there's two ZIS-2s here, that I don't need any more anti-tank over on this side. Still have a ZIS-2 here in the center, and it's still full health, okay? So I feel fairly confident about my anti-tank capabilities in the center here. Still have the anti-infantry gun. So this zone, I feel fairly confident is covered. And I also feel fairly confident that even if these units are spotted within the ranges that they work, they would still at least be able to give an even fight to exact some cost on my opponent, even if they do get engaged. So if another infantry gun engages my infantry gun, it will still be able to give as good as it takes. If a tank comes down here, then my ZIS-2 will be able to engage it. And so it's always costing my opponent something. I'm fairly confident of that with this kind of makeup. And then we even have the Sherman hiding behind the tree line here. So if anything does advance, tanks, let's say, were to advance down here, they would then be in danger of being flanked or getting shot in the side. So we have infantry controlling the forest. We have a Sherman in support behind it. And we have an infantry gun in the forest behind here. And this is a little bit conservative, I think, at the moment, but it's a nice defensive emplacement. Sometimes I think you have to kind of prepared to lose in a small way. Don't plan to lose. That's the key thing here. But just imagine if you did lose this immediate front line here, do you have something in the back that will, kind of help you with that? So my opponent advances with a Sherman, actually, same as me, another Sherman. Comes down the road here, getting a little bit too close to the forest there, which is a bad choice. I think I can, from my perspective, I can see this Sherman. And I realize now that this Sherman actually has shown its rear armor to me, and is even facing over to the right here. This is a opportunity. Opportunity presents itself. Now, if we're too far zoomed out, we would only see the unit card. So being super zoomed out all the time, I think, is not super effective, or you don't get the most out of your opportunities being so zoomed out. Being zoomed in here and having a look at the movement, we see this the Sherman moving away, and my Sherman here is actually in a prime place now to get a shot onto the Sherman for free. So my Sherman advances down the road, gets line of sight on the Sherman there, fires, and gets the kill. Look at that, beautiful. Shot right in the rear. Don't turn your tanks around. So close to the front line. Another great idea. So this is counter battery, or attempted counter battery, and mostly ineffective. But it does actually dismount some infantry here, and this is going back to that idea of don't put your artillery near reinforcement roads, because then the counter battery is going to land near the road and potentially either kill, and if it doesn't kill, it can dismount units. Now it's going to take so long for these two infantry units to get to the front line to do something, so it's very inefficient for them. So I'm now building up two more Strelky squads into the forest here. And what I'm looking to do is, because I can see my ally advancing here on the left side, and I have reasonable control, I feel, of this right side. What we can see here is a kind of a pincer movement happening, right? And what this means is, or the general consideration here is, let me just keep it plain. The general consideration is, this is, I feel, a big part of playing the bigger 10v10 games, is we don't advance to be encircled. We advance once the flanks are secure. So in this case, both the left flank and the right flank are very, very strong because they're ahead. So being ahead means that if I try to push in the center area now, there's no chance of my units being flanked or receiving flanking shots. They could be shot from the forest here, but I have things available to deal with that. They could be shot from the forest here, but there's a lot of units over here too, and that's not going to go well for any unit here. So I'm actually in a very strong position to advance into this town now. I just need the units there to do so. So here comes a Ju-87. Okay, this is going to take out my Sherman. It does receive some suppression, but does take out the Sherman. Does get hit by the anti-air. Okay. Will it make it back? It's smoking. And gets shot down. And that's the combined arms. We have the anti-air available. And even if we don't prevent the tank getting killed, we shoot down that plane, we're back to square one. We're back to even points. Not sure if that was a blind fire there. I don't think it hit anything. This Sturmpanzer IV is advancing alone. This is not combined arms. If we're talking about combined arms, this is not it. Advancing with a single armored unit is just going to get the armored unit killed, and I think we will surely see this Panzer IV die to something. Okay, so we see one Strelky squad advancing into the town here. This is like a test. Send the Strelky, send one 20-point unit. If it dies in a horrible fire, okay, well, we know something's there. We do something about what we learn. But so far, it's advanced safely, has not received any damage from anything. And what this now tells me is, I can do the same thing, but in a bigger way. So I'm going to buy more infantry, right? Here they come, two more superior, into the forest here. There's three more. Unload them into the forest here and walk them up exactly the same path into the town here. Close quarters like this really favor infantry. Even if there are tanks here, the Strelky with their anti-tank grenades have a reasonable chance of being able to take them out. So having Strelky and then also the Saperi, which have the HE grenades, that gives me two options. I have the normal line infantry, cheap, reasonable range. I have the Saperi. If they're enemy infantry, they can throw the grenades and take care of that. Large armored push by my ally on the side here. Sturmpanzer getting way too close to the buildings here. Way too close. And I wonder if these T-34s will take it out. Another Sturmpanzer here. Sturm Tiger even driving away with its rear facing the T-34s. Down goes the Sturmpanzer. Sturm Tiger actually manages to turn around and face his frontal armor without going down. Lucky, so lucky that my ally did not take advantage of that. So the infantry is arriving. Now they're going to do the same thing. Unload here, walk up. I'm even walking the sniper up as well. I feel fairly confident about that. And the control of this forest, however, now is not looking so great at the moment. But as I'm investing into a different, let's say, offensive at the moment, this one will have to wait. I feel reasonably confident that even if this forest is lost, not much headway will be made or be able to be made outside of that, because we have the infantry gun here. That prevents any infantry from advancing out of the forest, and we have the ZIS-2 as well. That prevents any armored vehicles from coming in this way to assist an infantry push. It's okay. It's not amazing. Ju-87, is it going to make it out? I don't think so. Nope, down it goes again. This is why we have the anti-air. Every time your opponent tries to bring out a plane, even if they get those bombs off, even if they get a kill, you make them pay for it. And that plane goes down. The points are no longer in favor of your opponent because they kill something, but they're back to being even at least. You know, and your opponent's planes are finite. See again here the anti-air preventing this recon plane from being able to fly as much as it wants over and spot, you know, our units. So the infantry, large amount of infantry now, advancing into the town. And so I advance with one Strelka unit to see what is in the town here. What can we see? So I'm getting shot by things over here. I've now spotted this T-34 and this half track here. Just switch to my view so we can see that. In comes the barrage from the 160mm mortar. So I've got two of these 160mm mortars now. One of the Strelky squads did not have a great time. Some of them are taking artillery fire, but we spread them out, and most of the time artillery fire is not just going to be infinite or eternal. It will land, your units will take some damage, they'll be suppressed a bit. Okay, fine, just wait. Just wait, the suppression will go down, and you can advance again, and probably your opponent is going to forget about firing the artillery again. They might be out of ammo. They might be looking somewhere else. So in this case here, the units, they get pinned down, and we just wait. We have reserves of infantry here. They don't need to advance right now. Just wait. So I think that was one of my my allies, the smell of blood. The 160mm here I put onto the Sturm Tiger, which is sat reasonably close here. So the accuracy is reasonably good. So now with the crappy F-22s taken out, destroyed by counter battery, just one left down here. You can see the craters in the ground here where they died in a fire. Now we've got a nice, let's say, what I would call a nice selection of some combined arms. We've got artillery, effective artillery. I wouldn't say the F-22 had been very effective, but these 160mm mortars definitely effective. Very nice blast radius on them. So we've got the artillery, and they allow us to shoot at targets of opportunity when we have them. We have the anti-air units, and that's preventing uh, enemy planes from attacking with impunity. And if they do attack, they're gonna pay for it. Then we've got infantry advancing here, supported by, let's see, anti-tank guns all along here. And on the right side here, we have the infantry gun. And we already kind of know what units we're facing here. And so once we have that knowledge, we can understand what to advance with. These two units got suppressed by artillery. That's fine. We make them fall back. We have reserves. We're going to advance with the reserves now. And we know there's some enemy infantry units in here, so we're going to use our superior. They have the HE grenades. That's going to make enemy infantry go boom. Okay, and here we go. Not sure if this is in range for a grenade. It is. Let's watch the Panzer Grenadier go bye-bye. Ooh, big boom. And there we go. And they surrendered. So using these two units together, effective. If I'd only sent the Strelki, that would have taken a much longer time. And also my units would have been revealed for a much longer time too. Because while your units are fighting, of course, your opponent can see them. But your opponent's unit is dead, surrendered, can't see your units anymore. They can see them for a few seconds, but after that, not anymore. If your opponent can't see your units, they can't fire on your units. That's important here as well. So now the influence line says, hey, there's nothing left in this town now, so we can pretty much take control of this. The left flank has also pushed ahead. So this left flank is strong. I feel confident about taking this town here. And so now the next option or the next objective would be to wrest control of the forest here and the forest line here, these buildings, and then we've got two nice objectives fairly close together here. We already have control, or we've had control of this town for a long time. But again, this is the idea of we're advancing once the flanks are at least reasonably safe. You know, if we're controlling this town here, we're not going to advance down this road and try to take this objective here, because we're going to be in danger of being shot in the side from here, from here, from here, potentially even here. Being in danger of being shot from the side here and here and here. We don't want to open ourselves up to being flanked. And so we make sure the flanks are strong, and then we push into that area. Actually have a Strelky DT here that got suppressed and had the influence line pushed over it, and now exists behind enemy infantry lines. And now this is a careful, let's say conservative deployment of infantry units. I would like more infantry in this town here in case my opponent tries to take it back. Also, because we're gonna want to leapfrog into this forest here, but driving down this road here opens us up to an opportunity to be sniped, or have our infantry trucks sniped from this forest here. We see it does have line of sight on the road here, and again, just about here, gets line of sight onto the road here. I don't want to give that opportunity. I don't want to lose units. We see the Katyusha going up here. Does get there safely, but at the end of the day, it's a risk. So having invested a few more Strelki here, I decide I'm going to walk them into the forest, as I don't believe my opponent has much in here. I don't believe so. I could be wrong. But let's check with the neutral. So my opponent's got a Begleit Grenadier. I think they have a grenade. No, they don't. Okay, these guys are going to have a bad time. And a one-man leader squad. A single leader tank behind the buildings there, and a half-track here. So this is really weak here. A bit stronger in the back. Leader unit sat out in the open, not a great choice. There is an anti-tank gun in the forest there. Again, this is what I was worried about. Generally, when we want to reinforce with our infantry, unless we're sure that our opponent doesn't have these anti-tank guns or tanks or things waiting with line of sight on the road, we're going to want to deploy or get them out of the trucks before we get to that point and send them in a safer way. So I'm sending infantry to the trees here. They are getting shot by the Pack 40, which reveals it. Once the Pack 40 is revealed, I can then shoot it with artillery, which is what's happening here. Now I'm using my 160mm mortar, and I think my allies are also using their artillery on it. Oh yes, a little bit of a miss there. But again, this comes into the combined arms approach. We advance with infantry. I don't need these infantry to try and kill this Pack 40 over here. We have lots of different tools in our toolkit to deal with that. And that important tool at the moment is artillery. So I've got one over here, which I'm firing into the forest here, as I suspect, or if I was the Axis player here, I would have something in the forest here. Now, using neutral view, we know that he doesn't, but I can actually see SBW, SDKFZ, so I target those with the mortar again. But often if we have our artillery and they're not really doing anything and we feel we have enough supply trucks, then blind firing at those locations where we suspect, our opponent will have units, where it would be a good idea to have units, then just blind firing there before we try to advance, it generally works out fairly well. So again here, I don't know what's in the forest here, so I deploy my infantry out of their trucks before we get there, just in case. So artillery now, onto the SPW, onto the T-34. There's a MG-42 out in the open here. Now this unit by itself is a nice counter to line infantry. So this unit counters the Strelki. Now if I want to take this out at this range, my line infantry are not going to do the job, especially also being shot by these support vehicles from the side here. And so I need something that's going to take out this MG-42 for me, but also without dying to these vehicles here. A nice unit to do that with is not the Emcher, should be coming out soon. Oh, it's already here. The SU-122. Now this has a very nice 2-kilometer range on its HE shells. And so I'm going to move this up the side here and hopefully get some nice flanking shots onto the MG-42. Mortars. SPW has gone down, so we change target to the SDKFZ. Infantry finally arriving at the forest now. Let's see if the mortar gets the kill on this half track here. Got the infantry ready to advance if this collapses. Again, another JU-87 goes down. And again, having these nice anti-air units, we also have to remember to move them up as we advance. So here, moving this one forward just a little bit. Again, these ones will also be moved up. We see there the Q move, another one over here. And that way, as we advance, our anti-air isn't left behind because they don't have infinite range. So they need to be at a reasonable distance from the front line to be the most effective, to keep them doing that prevention of enemy air power. If they're too far back, they won't do it at all. So the mortar takes out the half track here. The influence line goes back, and I can see now that this is free real estate, basically. So I know I can move my infantry up here. I know there's a tank here, but it doesn't have line of sight onto my infantry. So I'm free to move up. We have gained a little bit more territory here. SU-122 is moved up here, and I realize I also need something to take out this Panzer IV, so I'm bringing a Sherman up. So at the moment my problems are a T-34 here and a Panzer IV here with the MG-42 as well. So the Sherman engages the Panzer IV. I also have a T-34-85 coming up this way, but I think the Panzer IV actually absolutely wrecks my Sherman. Yep, gets 2 penetrating hits, my Sherman gets none. And now the T-34-85 engages the Panzer IV and it retreats, which is also fine as long as this tank is moving backwards. I think that was a penetrating hit there from the T-34-85. Now gets to shoot the MG-42, and once these are gone, we should be able to advance our infantry into this forest here. It's already pinned down. I'm already moving my infantry, and now we're going to contest this forest. Once we contest the forest here, we can contest this objective. This is one of the things that I kind of like about the Tannenburg map is the objectives are kind of really far back. And so you have to play a kind of a game of inches. And so you know we started in this forest line here, and in this forest here, and actually we haven't really advanced very far from here, but we have been successful. On this side, however, though, we have been very successful, and we are now contesting, let's say, the final point, the final stage, which is this forest here. If we can do that, then we can contest this objective, and the objectives is how we win the game, essentially. Not to say that we don't need to kill enemy units to win the game, but the objectives are, what cause the bars to tick down or not. So this is a kind of telltale sign that somebody is playing the what's the name of the division? It eludes me. The division with all of the I'm turning the sound down because the air sirens are just absolutely obnoxious. Eugen, do something about your air raid sirens. Alright, so I think my T-34 is going to lose to this Panther here, unfortunately. And as we gain a kind of large territory advantage here, we don't forget to move up the supporting equipment. Don't just leave everything sat in the back here. So we see here the infantry gun being moved up to the forest line, not just out in the open. The ZIS-2 here being moved to this forest line. So this was a nice kind of strong point for my opponent. Now it's going to be a strong point for me, where I can contest this reinforcement road here, and I can hide infantry guns, anti-tank guns. So Panther D here getting shot by my infantry gun, and I think the SU-122 is going to fire a heat shell at it. Yep, there we go. Incoming. Oof, very nice. Nice thing about the heat shells on this is that they do 12 damage. 12 damage will kill any tank in the game in one hit. So 40% accuracy, 40% chance to hit and kill any tank that it can penetrate with 160 millimeters of penetration. And that's not affected by distance because it's a heat shell. So the infantry gun I tell to fall back, but the ZIS-2 is still advancing, and we advance also the anti-air from the back, and that way they can continue to prevent enemy air from bombing our units and preventing us from advancing. Have Superi here in the forest, and let's have a look. Again, here we have Panzergrenz, line infantry against infantry that have grenades. These guys are gonna lose. So in go the Superi, and out goes the grenade, and poof. Bye bye Panzergrenz. If ever there was a good reason to not use line infantry in a heavy forest, I have presented it to you multiple times, I think. So that's why here we can keep the Strelki as the kind of skeleton in the back, and I'm sending Saperi and more Saperi into the heavy forest here, and they can actually just stay at the back. They can just stay at the back, and any infantry that try to contest it, if they are not also CQC infantry with flamethrowers or molotovs or grenades, they're gonna lose, like we saw that Panzergren lose to the Saperi here. So my opponent has to bring a specific kind of infantry to counter this, and if they don't, they're going to have to bring at least 2 to 1 to have some kind of chance of winning this fight. So it looks like he is bringing more infantry in here. Another problem he has here is that all of his infantry are coming in half tracks. And why is that a problem? You say, why are half tracks a problem? Because they cost points. Each of these half tracks, let's have a look, cost 10 points. Are they doing anything? These half tracks, they are sitting here, they are holding the influence line. Are they actually doing anything though? Are those 10 points, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 50 points, are these 50 points doing something or not? I'm not saying in every situation they're going to do nothing, but take it into consideration when you're building your deck and when you're choosing the transport options for your infantry. Are you going to get use out of those extra 10 points or not? Do you want to be able to bring 5 infantry units per minute or 4? Okay, so the planes here actually do manage to get their rockets off onto some tanks here. That's one of the advantages actually of the rocket planes, is that they can fire from further away than the bombers can. The bombers have to be above their target. Rocket planes can fire from further back and then retreat before getting too close. So rocket planes often have a much better chance of getting their bomb load off or their rocket load off before being suppressed and forced to fall back. So there's a lot on screen. Let's just cut to what I can see here. Alright, so this is a nice example here. So in this situation here, once we, let me just adjust. Once we advance here, and we've kind of, my ally has really invested into this here. So once I see a kind of heavy investment by my allies here, I can kind of take my foot off the pedal a bit, let them take care of it, and just leave the units I have there to kind of, maintain. And I can focus on something else. So we've kind of taken care of this, and so my next kind of order of operations is going to be this objective here. Now the left side is looking just fine. The right side, we have a problem. We have a tiger. And taking out tigers, there are a few different ways to do it. But what I saw, looking at or using the C key and having a look at the distance, we have a look here. We actually have quite a nice sightline onto this tiger, and I happen to have 2-kilometer range anti-tank guns with 200 millimeters of penetration against a tiger, which has 125 millimeters of frontal armor. So this BS3 100 millimeters I deployed into the forest here because I knew it had this nice line of sight. Now it's taking the tiger to Pound Town. And I think it already hit with 1 penetration. Here goes the second shot. Misses the second shot. There we go. Armor cracked on the tiger. Down it goes. And so now we've got 1 less opponent in this area. This allows me now to move my tanks forwards without being in danger of being killed by the tiger. So this allows me now to kind of free up the use of my tank to use and to support my infantry if I want to move them forwards here. We do have a, let's say, tenuous control of this objective here. But now the next idea is going to be getting infantry into the forest here, moving infantry, let's say, deploying infantry into the forest here, not out in the open, because that's a good way to get them sniped. But deploy them into the forest here, and then we're going to run them out into the buildings here, or from this forest here, as you can see, into the buildings here. If we can control this, And then so the next stage will be then into the forest here, into the buildings here, and then we will have control of the objective there. So my mortars were running out of ammunition, so we've got some supply trucks coming in. And on the right side here, I saw a bunch of Shupo. And so I aimed at the back here. Now if we have a look at this, I can't actually see what's happening here. What I can see is that these are disheartened troops. Anytime they get suppressed, they automatically fall back. And so a lot of the time, the infantry wants to use cover to fall back. So if we've got light forest here and it wants to fall back, my guess is that the infantry here will fall back in this direction, okay? So what I do is I see all these infantry, and I'm guessing that my opponent is spamming them, putting a lot of them there, and I think, okay, these guys are falling back, so if I just aim and I fire into this area here, where they're probably going to run to while falling back, I can continue suppressing them and make them fall back even more. Now, I can't actually see this from my point of view. I'm just guessing or making an educated guess, right? If we change to neutral, we can actually see that there are units here, and some of them have regained their suppression and are trying to run back. And in comes the artillery and makes them all full suppression again and falling back again. So this is actually a really nice little option with the mortar. Anytime they try to regain their suppression here, and then the mortar lands again, almost full suppression again on this guy. And then I see another problem is that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Shupo running in the open here. Now most of the time, if the player has a brain, they're not just going to run infantry out in the open. They're going to try and get them to some kind of cover, whether that be trees or buildings or something like that. So in this case here, I see these Shupo advancing, and I look for where they would be advancing to, which would be the buildings here. That seems like a smart choice. And so we just aim in front of them with the mortars. So one here and a safety here in case they get past this zone here. In comes the first mortar. Perfect. First two squads fully suppressed and automatically falling back because they're disheartened. And the second two squads, same thing. We don't even need to kill them. We just need to stop them from advancing. There's the fifth squad. This is one of the reasons that I don't really like disheartened troops, because they actually take 50% extra suppression damage. We see here just one shell. They're all suppressed and automatically falling back. And they're now at the mercy of tanks, so they're shooting them, all kinds of things. I did spot some anti-air in the back there, and so artillery are great for taking out any kind of supporting equipment in the back. Anything you can lay your hands on, pop it with a few caps. Now, one of the problems I realize here that I can't actually show you in the replay is that although my coverage over these areas with radio units was just fine and dandy, no problem, is kind of lacking over here. So I've brought one of my artillerist units here. I'm going to deploy him into the forest here, and that's going to allow me to get higher accuracy on my 160mm mortars. Now again here, I said we wanted to take this objective, and so I've moved infantry up through the buildings here. I've encountered a kind of problem though, and that is that this is secured with other infantry. Okay, fine. As you might expect. So now what we can do is we're going to soften this up. We're going to try to suppress or just kill, outright kill enemy units with our artillery. And so these 160mm mortars are fantastic. So many uses for them. Preventing infantry advances here. Taking out anti-air units in the back here. Bombarding strong positions that you want to take. This is a blind fire here. But if I was the Axis player, I would put units into the forest here. I think if we check neutral he didn't actually put any. No, it's just a half track behind the forest. But in this position, I would put units in here. So this is, I think, still a good choice. And in come the shells, and this is actually a really nice kind of barrage circle here. It's pretty much guaranteed to hit some of the buildings here, which is where all of the infantry are going to be. And they don't really have any choice. They're either in the buildings here or they're retreating. And if they're retreating, that also works for me too, because we just want to contest this objective. So my ally pushes here with some tanks, which is actually super helpful and allows us to push forwards here. More infantry coming from the back. Again, deploying into the forest here and walking them up so that they cannot get sniped. Cannot. Now I start to realize, I think at this point, that this area here on the right is a bit sparse. I mean, we look here, there's a ZIS-2, there are some tanks, but this whole area here has no infantry. That's kind of a problem. That's, the infantry is our skeleton. So I think I actually end up bringing some infantry here as well. And that kind of extends my front line from the middle here all the way over to the almost left side. Something like an 8 kilometer stretch of front line that I'm trying to work with. But again, it's not like I do it because I'm feeling generous. It's that if this flank collapses, then that's going to affect the position here. And if it affects the position here, that's going to affect the position here, and it becomes a kind of knock-on effect. So if we're trying to take the objective here, then we need to have a reasonably strong position here, and to do that, we need to be working on this area here. This is under enemy control, and this is actually no good for trying to advance here. Too easy for there to be flanking shots onto vehicles, onto infantry. Too easy for our opponent to reinforce down this road and down this road here into this forest here. We see here there's artillery firing from here as well, because there's no danger to them. If we advanced a little bit closer to here, those artillery might have to consider moving away. And if they're moving, they're not shooting. So I bring infantry into the forest here. I bring up an ISU 152. And the reason for the ISU 152 here is that this is an excellent anti-infantry gun. 152 millimeters, 152, right? My voice is going from all this talking. This thing annihilates enemy infantry squads, and it does so at 2 kilometers range. And so, having seen the charge of the light brigade here with the SS Shupo, I knew that having the ISU 152 here as a supporting kind of equipment role would be perfect. We keep it right at the back here. Any enemy infantry or soft targets that come into all of this zone here, and this is the zone that we want to contest here, right? We want to contest this zone here. We want to contest these buildings here and this forest here. And right from this position here, this ISU 152 can do that pretty well. It's in the forest now, but it can be moved forwards a little bit to get a line of sight onto this forest here. So what we're going to look to do here now is maybe shore up the front line here, the empty front line, just with some infantry, and then try and contest this forest here. And once this flank is a little bit more secure, then I would feel a bit more confident about trying to advance here, and we can try to contest this objective maybe. Now, thanks to my allies' tank push here, I can safely move my infantry up. Once my infantry get into the forest here, into the buildings here, it's going to be really hard for my opponent to take this objective back. That 122 millimeter that was giving me hell all game is finally going to die, and I can't say I'm sad about that. Let's watch it die. Beautiful, beautiful. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Love it. So again, nothing really needs to be done on this side. This is fairly secure. especially with my allies invest so much infantry into here. Pushing now with my own infantry, making sure that they take the infantry positions, the heavy forest, the buildings. Again, supported. We have the SU-122 in the back here. We have the ZIS-2 in the forest here. So we're covering these zones, even though we don't have units like right here. We still have units contesting these zones. So we have some kind of zone of control here. If I need, the SU-122 is right in the back there. It's very close. Just has to come around this tree line here. You see, very short distance to be able to help contest this. Also helps to contest this. So next thing is this forest here, and we're gonna try and take this forest, these buildings. Those are my mortars now, firing onto the forest here. Again, I don't know if there's something there. Might be that the Pack 40 tries to retreat this way. Might be that there's some infantry there. It's just a blind fire, trying to cover my bases, so to speak. Send a recon unit into the forest here. Find a T-34-76. And sending the Strelky as well. This is one of my bombers, but it receives way too much anti-air fire. Look at that. My goodness. My goodness. We look at neutral. We will see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 14 anti-air guns in this area behind the heavy forest. Little bit of overkill, I would say. I'm not sure why you would need that many anti-air guns, but they definitely prevented my bomber from taking out this tank here. But the bomber is just one tool we have to take out this tank. So if I can't take out this tank with a heavy bomber, I mean, doing so with the heavy bomber would be nice. That would be much quicker because it flies, drops its bombs, and it's done like that. That would be nice, but okay. Maybe we can't do that. If my ally was paying attention with his T-34-85s here, he could move those up to assist, but he's doing something else at the moment. Okay, so we deal with it ourselves. So we bring up our own T-34-85. That's going to take out this T-34-76, 100%, because the T-34-85 has much better armor, much better penetration. There's almost no way the T-34-76 can win that fight. So again, this is the principle of taking fights that you can win. Take the fight you can win. No even fights. Don't do an even fight, never. Unless you absolutely have to. If you can take an uneven fight, that's the fight you take. So in comes the T-34-85. We're going to advance it into the forest here. But we're going to send the infantry as well. Now we know there's a T-34-76 there, but in the time since I sent my bomber, and I knew the T-34-76 was there, my opponent could have brought some anti-tank infantry into this light forest here, okay? If he has a Panzerschreck, if he has a bazooka, and they have 200 meter range, they could be hiding in the back of the light forest here, pop out, and poof, I lose my T-34-85, and we're back to square one, needing something to take out this T-34-76. So what we do is, not having the information here, not knowing what we need, we're using combined arms. This is another kind of combined arms. This is called screening. We're screening with our infantry. So we send the infantry in first. We say, okay, you just go and get shot, and then at least we know what's in there. And if there is a bazooka in there, you can shoot the bazooka for us, but otherwise I'm not sending my T-34-85 too close to this forest. Okay, so it gets this close, and I press the E key, make it stop. And then we just let the Strelky go ahead. And if they spot the T-34-76, okay, then we'll engage it. And if they spot any Panzerschrecks or anti-tank infantry, the tank is still safe and not just immediately dead. So let's see what they find. Okay, there we go. And they find the T-3476. They can see this far into the forest now. And now that we know that it's clear, we can just make them stop. This one can keep advancing. This one's being shot. And we'll say, okay, off you go. Shoot the thing. There we go. This is a safe engagement. And again, this is not just using one unit type. We're using different unit types to complement each other. And complementary isn't only about, the weapons they have. It's about the cost of the unit sometimes. Like the Strelky, 20 points. But the T-34-85, 100 points. Which one do you care more about losing? It's the T-34-85, 100%. So we can use these cheap infantry as a screening force, as a scouting force. Just send it in to see if something's there. If it dies, it's okay. We don't care about 20 points. 100 points we kind of care about. So now that this has been cleared of the tank, I can advance with my infantry, and I can support with my tanks, T-34-85, ISU-152, Strelky getting shot by the Pack 40 here, but I don't care. I know there's an off-map coming. I know my artillery are coming. This is actually now a good opportunity to show the difference in accuracy with the radio bonus and without the radio bonus. So I have my artillerist moving up here, and we actually just saw this artillery circle here jump down in size. Maybe you saw it, maybe you didn't. Just rewind and you'll be able to see it up there. Just jump down in size. But as it moves forward, its radio range is about, let's say, 1,500 meters. So that's about this line here so far. And as it moves closer here, as it reaches the center point of this larger artillery circle here, which is coming from the 160 millimeter radio mortar. So the mortar has the radio trait, and the artillerist also has the radio trait. So he's projecting this radio zone all around him, about 1,500 meters around him. And so any artillery that have the radio trait that you then try to fire within this artillerist's, or any unit that has a radio within any kind of radio zone, is gonna get better accuracy, and I think also it's gonna get better aiming time as well. And so we'll see that here. We'll be able to see this aiming circle here jump down in size as this artillerist actually comes in and brings the radio zone over the center of this aiming circle here. So let's watch that happen here. Let's watch this big circle. There we go. It just jumps down to about half size. Now before, it could have been missing a lot. This is not missing at all. This is going to pound straight into this heavy forest. It's going to be beautiful. So one of the mortars should be firing right about now. Off you go, buddy. Come on, let's do the thing. There we go. So no need to try and engage the Pack 40 with my ISU or my T-35. Again, I could lose my tank to that because that kind of fight is a little bit too even for my liking. But I have radio mortars and artillery, and they can fire and take out these anti-tank guns with no danger to myself. So why not do it that way? 0% chance of losing a unit is way better than 50% chance of losing a unit. So we just let the artillery fire a bit. Don't even need to kill the enemy unit, just as long as it's suppressed or falling back or whatever, or not out here able to shoot at stuff. Fine, let it fall back. Infantry can take care of it later. If it's sat in the back here, it's kind of useless anyway, so it doesn't matter. But once we secure this forest here, and we get a bit more control for this flank, then we can start looking to advance in this area here. Lost the tank there. There's a Tiger over here. Down goes another T-34-85. And so now we're looking to advance into heavy forest here, right? And I have Strelky, Let's show here line infantry. If my opponent has line infantry in here, that's gonna be the 50-50 again. It's gonna be line infantry against line infantry. In a heavy forest, we will do much better with CQC infantry. So what I do is, I'm going to advance my Strelki up a bit. I'm going to take control of the light forest here. This is light forest. This is heavy forest. And we'll take control of this, and then we'll just leave them there. And we'll send some CQC infantry. We see there are trucks dropping off infantry here, right? And we'll put some CQC infantry into the forest here to try and contest that. So we're a bit light on the side here. Still sending more infantry to secure this zone. We've got our infantry in the buildings around this objective to secure it. This objective is very, very secure. King Tiger coming out there for some reason. I'm not sure how well that's gonna do. And still, the anti-air still moving up. As soon as you've got a few inches, you can move it up a few inches. Now the infantry advancing again. I mean, this is a little bit far away because it was just there. Here we're going to deploy some Strelki behind the buildings. These are actually wrecked, so we can't deploy into them. We're going to deploy behind the buildings, and then we'll walk up, hopefully, to these buildings here. This one I feel a bit safer about because there are already infantry out in the open walking about, and they don't seem to be doing too badly. So I'm going to deploy some more infantry here, and then we'll try to advance into the buildings here, into the forest here. So 3 and 3. Another one here on the right side. Still got the 3 Strelki holding the line here, and we've got 3 CQC infantry coming to be deployed to try and contest this heavy forest here. Now we don't have to win control of this heavy forest. All we need to do is contest it. If it's contested, if this is an infantry fighting zone, then our opponent is not going to risk placing anti-tank guns here, which means no flanking shots. Probably not going to risk it here, but it's potential. I'd say it's a 50-50 here, but putting them here puts them at risk of being killed by ISU 152 or infantry if we do get a sudden breakthrough. But with all those anti-air guns there, advancing any infantry across here is probably quite dangerous. So here's the Strelki, and into the forest here. Now we're trying to move them, leapfrog them across this open area into these buildings here. Always looking to go from one defensible area to a defensible area. So we're going from heavy forest to buildings, or from buildings to heavy forest, or heavy forest to heavy forest, but always to something. This is a plane train, as I mentioned right at the start of the video. You see, one of these does actually manage to get its shot off. 2 of them or 3 of them manage to get their rockets off. And that's really the only way you're going to get some use out of your planes at the end of the game. Because you can see there's a lot of anti-air, and even though about 7 planes were brought out, only 3 of them actually got to fire, and they still all took damage and got suppressed in the end anyway. And that was to kill 1 tank, 1 T-34-85. They had to spend, or they had to utilize at least 700 points of units. This PE-2 is going to die in a fire. Oh goodness, all that anti-air over there. I mean, learn your lesson. You know, I sent 1 heavy bomber here, and you can see the muzzle flashes all there, right? It's ridiculous. Don't send any more air after that. So we contest the zone here, and there's going to be another off-map here. Very nice for my ally, very helpful. Infantry are advancing fairly freely, and we're pushing the line here, trying to contest this area here and take this last objective. But at this stage, you know, it's 2 minutes 30 left on the clock. We're probably not going to get it. Even still, I would say it's better most of the time to not let up. You know, if your opponent's on the back foot, keep them there. And then they'll always be trying to retake what they lost rather than take something from you. And so in this case here, all the infantry that I sent into here did die, but not for free. They did contest this area, they did kill some enemy infantry units, and they did force the opponent to buy more infantry units to send here. And when they're buying infantry units to send here, they're not buying tanks to send somewhere else. They're not buying planes to bomb somewhere else. They have to take care of this because we're forcing them to take care of this. And so this is, another important principle is keeping your opponents occupied, and then they can't take care of other things. They can't try to retake this objective or this objective if they're trying to prevent all of their anti-air from being attacked here, because this is a really high value field here with all those anti-air guns. You get a couple of tanks or something in there, and they would make a whole big mess. So we've got the Su-122 here. I think that's fighting the Panther. Probably gonna lose. Yep, there we go. One more shot might have got it the kill, maybe not. Oof, all of this anti-air fire here. So we see these planes are taking the anti-air fire. These two Tu-2Ss might be able to get their bombs off. Yep, there goes one. There goes another one. See these bombs drop, I think, on the Panzer IV. We see because they got such high suppression before they managed to release the bombs were really spread out. Look at this range here. That's almost a 200-meter spread of bombs. Really, you need the bombs to be landing on the target, to actually get the kills. If they're so spread out, the best you're gonna get is suppression and falling back, like we got here. And there we have it, all done. So it did end in a draw, but in terms of the area we were looking at and trying to take care of, we were fairly successful, I would say. I think in the end we managed to take 2 or 3 objectives. The third objective I'm counting here being on the left side, not that we directly, tried to take it, but by controlling the right flank of this objective, our ally is then more easily able to advance and control it without being shot in the side. Controlling the flanks is an important aspect. So that's the 10v10. I know it's a little bit long, but I hope you could see there, how we use all the different kinds of units to complement each other, and that just using one unit type, like for example when you saw the charge of the SS Shupo, and there were six squads of infantry that were sent packing by a mortar, one mortar. So one unit countered 6 squads of infantry with one barrage. It's a lot of the time it is that easy. You have the right unit to counter the right unit. Then if your opponent is using only that kind of unit, they're going to be very easily countered. And so we're never just trying to spam one kind of unit. We're trying to use different things to complement each other. As we advance infantry, we're going to need the anti-air behind that to prevent them being bombed. As we have open areas, we're going to need those kinds of support equipment and anti-tank guns that allow us to exert influence over those wide open zones, which is not where you want to be putting your infantry. You can leapfrog frog infantry from one strong position to another, and that's a risky move for them, but it's necessary. They have to do it. But as they do that, they need to be supported. You need to have tools in place to take out enemy positions. At the start of the game, we saw the Pak-38 that was shooting my infantry transports. So we use the IL-2 to bomb the Pak-38, and then we can continue using that reinforcement road without being sniped. So that's using our Air Force to allow our infantry to advance. That's using our Air Force to stop our tanks from having to engage in a 1v1 where they might actually lose. We saw the Sherman and the infantry gun working together to take out the second Pak-38. Although the infantry gun was a little bit late, it still got that final shot. And again, it's wanting to take those fights where you have an advantage or you have more units able to fire than your opponent, so that you're not really in any chance of losing things or less chance of losing things. You will lose things, of course, as the battle goes. You can't help that. But as long as you are still advancing and maintaining a strong position while losing units, that's essentially what I would consider to be winning, right? So let's have a quick look at the team stats. Got about 3,000 to 2,600 for this game. I find with the 10v10s, it's not really always, what would you say, an accurate measure of the effectiveness of units. Like if we have a look at let's say, there's one Zen artillery here with two kills. This one got one kill, and there's one kill here. But even though this says only one kill for the Zen artillery, how many planes did it shoot at during the length of that match? How many planes did it suppress and not kill? How many planes did it prevent from attacking, it prevent from dropping their bombs, but maybe just didn't get the last hit? Because this really is just counting the last hit. So you could, if there's a 12-man squad of infantry and you kill 11 of them and your ally kills the last one, that infantry squad is going to be on your ally's kill list and not yours. The game doesn't count the damage, just that last hit. So it's not always like the best measure of a unit's value here. But in terms of what did get a nice kill list, the IS-152, okay, did its job taking out those infantry units. That's why I wanted it for. This superior unit taking out the line infantry. Oof. So one CQC infantry takes out 3 line infantry units. So it's a good argument to not use line infantry in heavy forests, I hope. There's this too here with a nice kill list. 2 Panzer IVs, a T-34, a Hummel, and 2 half-tracks. That's pretty good, actually. That's a nice kill list there. And the 160 milliliter millimeter with the, let's see, the Grilla, SPW, this HE shell half-track, another HE shell half-track. This is a pretty good kill list, actually, as well. I quite like these 160 millimeter mortars. They're pretty good, actually. Panther kill with the SU-122. Few infantry kills with the other SU-122. Yeah. All right, well, let's have a look at the losses. Anything significant? The SK-18, fantastic counter battery. Look at that. The useless F-22, lost the ZIS-2, and also got one of my 160 mil mortars. Damn. Hummel taking out one of my Zen artillery and the BS-3. Damn, that's nice. ME-410, just 2 Strelky. Nebelwerfer with another anti-air. So again, this is, a good counter. You see your opponent has anti-air units. Good counter to that is to use artillery to take out those anti-air units. Alright, I think we're going to stop here. I think this is a long enough video, right? So, sorry about the length. I hope that you enjoyed that. I hope that helps you to understand the game a bit better in terms of combining our arms. And I hope you can apply some of these ideas in your own games. But anyway, that's it from me. So thanks for watching, and hope to see you next time.